Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church on this beautiful, snowy, wintry morning. I'm Abhijan Amanchi. My pronouns are he, him, one of the ministers serving this religious community. If you're new with us this morning, please let us know in the live chat. And if you feel comfortable, please fill out the newcomer form that's included in the chat. Whether you're joining us today for the first time, or you've been with us for a lifetime, you are welcome here. Whoever you are and whomever you love, you are welcome here. Wherever you are joining us from and however you arrived at our worship time together, you are welcome here. Whatever your beliefs, gender identity and expression, immigration status, or political views, you are welcome here. Thank you for taking a chance and taking the time to worship with us today. If you've been attending for a while and are interested in becoming a member of this religious community, please reach out to our membership coordinator, Nicole Kazi. Our pastoral visitors are an extension of our ministry team, and they are available in the chat today to support you. Now I have a few announcements. Cedar Lane is honored to partner with Westmoreland United Church of Christ Congregation and River Road UU to host an important documentary today at 2 p.m., The Three Known Lynchings of Montgomery County. You can still register for this documentary, and the information is in the chat. Also, the music director search team is seeking the participation of all Cedar Lane members and friends in a survey that would help determine the future of our music ministry program and the role of the director of music. The link to the survey is now included in the chat and can also be accessed through our e-news. And finally, please mark your calendar on Wednesday, March 3rd at 7:30 p.m. for the 2021 Kiplinger Lecture on Ethics by acclaimed civil rights activist, attorney, filmmaker, best-selling author, and inspirational speaker, Valerie Kaur. Sister Valerie burst into the American consciousness in the wake of the 2016 election when her watch night service address went viral with over 30 million views worldwide. Her lecture, entitled The Ethic of Revolutionary Love, will explore how to reclaim love as a force for justice and transformation in America. Hope you will join us. As we enter this worship experience of reflection and remembrance, redemption and reconciliation, joys and sorrows, community and connection, let us be mindful of the land where our beloved church is situated. Let us be mindful of the Piscataway, Nakoktank, and Anacostia tribe who have walked these lands for 1,000 years and more. Let us remember those who were enslaved and worked this land without choice or reward. And let us remember all who have gone before, whose vision and labor help create and sustain this, our religious community. In this spirit, we gather. In this spirit, we worship. I invite us now to take a moment to greet and welcome each other in the chat.
May I be all in for beloved community. May I be all in despite the challenges. May I be all here for beloved community. May I be ready for the beauty because I long for the possibilities. Yes, I am here for beloved community. May I see the beauty of you in community, of us in community. May we be the beauty of beloved community. May we be the dream together. We join here for beloved community. Good morning. I'm Jared Wilson, the worship associate for today's service. My pronouns are he, him. I am lighting my chalice in Silver Spring, Maryland. As I read our chalice lighting words, I invite you to share in the chat where you are lighting your chalice from. With humility and courage born of our history, we are called as Unitarian Universalists to build the beloved community where all souls are welcome as blessings, and the human family lives whole and reconciled. With this vision in our hearts and minds, we light our chalice.
Love grows one by one, two by two, and four by four. Love grows round like a sickle and comes back knocking at your front door. Note by note we make a song, voice by voice we sing it. Choir by choir we'll fill up the world with the music that we bring. Love grows one by one, two by two, and four by four. Love grows round like a circle and comes back knocking at your front door. So let me take your hand, my friend. We'll each take the hand of another. One by one we'll reach everyone all around the world. Love grows one by one, two by two, and four by four. Love grows round like a circle and comes back knocking at your front door. And comes back knocking at your front door.
Wonder, todos somos únicos. We're all wonders. Written and illustrated by R.J. Palacio. I am going to read you this story in Spanish. The words will be written in English on the screen, and I invite you to read along at home in the language of your heart and choosing. Sé que no soy un chico normal. Por supuesto, hago cosas normales. Monto en bici, como helados. Pero no tengo un aspecto normal. Soy diferente a los otros chicos. Mi madre dice que soy único. Dice que soy maravilloso. Mi perra Daisy está de acuerdo con ella. Pero algunas personas no se dan cuenta de lo singular que soy. Lo único que ven es que soy diferente. A veces se me quedan mirando, me señalan o se echan a reír. Incluso me gritan a mis espaldas, pero yo los oigo. me duele en el alma. También le duele a Daisy. Cuando esto sucede, me pongo el casco. A Daisy también le pongo el casco. Y entonces despegamos. Arriba, arriba, arriba. Atravesamos las nubes. Cruzamos la galaxia hasta Plutón. Saludamos a los viejos amigos. Desde tan lejos la Tierra parece muy pequeña. No se ven las personas, pero sé que están ahí. Millones y millones de personas de distintos colores, personas que caminan y hablan de modo distinto. Personas con aspecto diferente como yo. En la Tierra hay espacio suficiente para todo tipo de gente. Sé que no puedo cambiar el aspecto que tengo, pero tal vez, la gente sí puede cambiar su modo de percibir las cosas. Si lo hacen, verán que soy único. Y verán que ellos también lo son. Todos somos únicos. Mirad con bondad y descubriréis cosas únicas.
Thank you, Reverend Romano Griffin, for that beautiful story. Every Sunday during worship, we take up an offering. It's good to remind ourselves from time to time that the offering is symbolic as well as practical. We know that it is through financial giving that we build our budget and fund our mission and ministries of worship and religious education, pastoral care, and social justice, pay our staff and our professional religious leaders, and finance the comfort and beauty of our buildings and our grounds. We pass the plate, symbolically, of course, during our worship service to make a community expression of gratitude for the blessing of abundance, to visibly bring in the harvest at this most cherished hour of the week. Our offering says that the act of giving is as essential to our spiritual well being as anything else we do here on Sunday mornings. We are deeply grateful for the incredible generosity of our members and friends throughout this time in support of our mission and ministry and the many community organizations that we partner with in service of our mission. There are many ways to give to Cedar Lane. You can give by the electronic means of our modern times, by text, online giving, PayPal, QR code, or by the ancient practice of mailing your check to the church. This week, we are giving to support Congregation Action Network, CAN. As a founding member, Cedar Lane has been actively engaged in immigrant justice work through CAN, including being a sanctuary until recently for Doña Rosa and her family. Let us hear more from CAN's lead organizer, Omar Angel Perez.
Hello, my name is Omar Angel Perez. I'm leading the work of the Congregation Action Network. For the past 4 years, the Congregation Action Network has been fulfilling its mission and goal, which is to stop deportations and separation of our families by leading deportation defense campaigns, doing advocacy for immigrants and against family separation, doing rapid response actions, providing accompaniment, and sanctuary. Cedar Lane has been a key leader on providing sanctuary for Rosa Gutierrez and leading by example doing this work. We're in a new context now, but there is still work to do. As a part of a healing for our country, we need now to advocate for the reunification of families separated under Trump and for a path for citizenship for the 11 million undocumented Americans. We cannot do this alone. We need your help. So please stay tuned for the opportunities of how you can be part of this big effort. Thank you so much to each of you. Thank you so much to Cedar Lane leaders for all your commitment and work and support to Rosa and to immigrant community in general. Muchas gracias.
If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when. We may never see this moment, place and time again. If not now, tell me when. I see sorrow and trouble in this land. I see sorrow and trouble in this land. Although there will be struggle, we'll take the chance we can. If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when. We may never see this moment or place and time again. If not now, tell me when. I may never see the promised land. I may never see the promised land. And yet we'll make the journey. We'll walk it hand in hand. If not now, tell me when. And we'll work until it's done. Every daughter, every son, every soul that ever longed for something better, something brighter. It will take a change of heart for this to end. It will take a change of heart for this to mend. But miracles do happen every shining now and then. If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when. We may never see this moment or place and time again. If not now, tell me when. And miracles do happen every shining now and then. If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when.
Each time we gather for worship, we set aside time to expand the caring ministry of this congregation. Together, we recognize the cycles of life and death, the circle of love, compassion, and witness that is at the heart of this religious community. Our hearts are with those whose primary spiritual practice is parenting. We hold in our circle of caring those who live with grief and chronic pain, with illnesses seen and unseen, with mental illness and addiction, those who care for family members in ill health, and who are experiencing job loss and financial insecurity. Within our Cedar Lane community, we celebrate with our choir section leader, Rachel Moore, who just became engaged to Julian Reed. We hold in our hearts the Ellis family, Anne, Rachel, Daniel, Sarah, and William, as they mourn the passing of Tracy Ellis, who died suddenly on Tuesday. Our caring extends beyond Cedar Lane to others whose lives are lost and whose lives are impacted by the violence and calamities in our nation and the world. We hold in our hearts the more than 462,000 people who have died from COVID-19, the millions who are infected, and those who continue to risk their lives and health and well-being to keep us safe, healthy, fed, and connected. Now I invite you into a moment of prayer and reflection. Find your center and your breath. Breathe into the seat that is supporting you. Feel all the ways that you are connected to this earth. Beloved ancient one who brings the peace of the falling snow, we come to you with our worn and weary souls, knowing that your love is bigger than our pandemic exhaustion. We open our hearts to you. We open our hearts to the possibility of bringing warmth and love to those who are cold. We open our hearts to the possibility of bringing connections and hope to those who are lonely. We open our hearts to the possibility of bringing joy and new dreams to those who are caught in the depths of despair. May we all find comfort in the predictability of your rhythms, the rhythms of nature that persist and remind us that the sun will rise again, the snow will fall, and then it will melt. And at this very moment, flowers are preparing to bloom beneath the snow and the soil. Spirit of life, holder of all possibilities, it is in your name we pray this morning. Amen. As we enter the silence, those who are mourning a loss or marking the anniversary of a loss are invited to rise and to share your loved one's name in the chat in mourning and memory.
Congressman John Lewis used to tell a scary and wondrous story about being in a mighty storm with his aunt and 11 cousins when he was 4 years old. They were all outside playing one day when the sky got suddenly dark and the wind was wild, and their aunt called them into the house. And very soon, a tornado hit the wood frame house so hard that they could see the floorboards peeling up from the dirt below as if it were a tent. All the children were terrified, but they joined their hands and all their weight, walking toward the spot to press it down, and then walked the other way when another corner threatened to rise up. And they kept on doing this, walking hand in hand until the storm died down. Congressman Lewis said that for him, this is a metaphor for the concept, the principle of beloved community. We're still doing it, he said. You and I are like children holding hands, walking with the wind in the endless struggle to respond with decency and dignity to the challenges that face us. So this morning, we are exploring the principle and the practice of beloved community. Now, beloved community is an old idea. The term was coined by the philosopher theologian Josiah Royce, who founded the Fellowship of Reconciliation in the early 20th century during World War I, that is still in existence today. And for over a century, the Fellowship of Reconciliation has been committed to the reconciliation of nation and people, and also to a kind of reconciliation within people. The balance of conscience against the record of our daily life and practice, and the balance of hope against paralyzing fear and despair, the balance of activism with reflection and prayer. Now, Dr. King was a member of the fellowship, and with that association, learned about the beloved community from his study of Royce's writings, and also from Mahatma Gandhi's writings on ahimsa, or nonviolence, and sarvodaya, which means the economic and social development of a community as a whole. He popularized the term beloved community through many of his speeches and writings over a 13-year ministry, and invested it with a deeper meaning, which has resonated with many people all over the world. Now, Dr. King envisioned the beloved community as a society based on justice, equal opportunity, peace, liberation, and love for our neighbors. And according to the King Center, and I quote, Dr. King's beloved community is a global vision in which all people can share in the wealth of the earth. In the beloved community, poverty, hunger, and homelessness will not be tolerated because international standards of human decency will not allow it. Racism and all forms of discrimination, bigotry, and prejudice will be replaced by an all-inclusive spirit of brotherhood, sisterhood, and siblinghood. In the beloved community, international disputes will be resolved by peaceful conflict resolution and reconciliation of adversaries instead of military power. Love and trust will triumph over fear and hatred, and peace with justice will prevail over war and military conflict. End of quote. So, the beloved community is not a goal or destination, and it is not some kind of a utopian dream, but instead a way of being, socially, spiritually, politically, economically, emotionally, and intellectually. It is an orientation of the heart. It is a disciplined understanding of our own relationship to ourselves and to other people, to everyone else on the planet, to every living being. According to the Reverend Victoria Safford, if one is religious, this is a religious discipline and it goes by many names. If one is seeking spiritual wholeness, it is a spiritual discipline. If one is an ethical humanist, it is a deliberate moral choice. Beloved community, she says, is a daily practice, a spiritual politics that requires inclusivity, nonviolence, and the hard discipline of radical hospitality. And beloved community requires agapic love, which Dr. King defined as an overflowing love, which is purely spontaneous, unmotivated, groundless, and creative. The love of God operating in the human heart. It is a love by which the individual seeks not their own good, but the good of their neighbors. It begins by loving others for their sakes. It makes no distinction between friends and enemy. Agape is love in action, seeking to preserve and create community. In the final analysis, he writes, agape means the recognition of the fact that all life is interrelated. A religious community like Cedar Lane can practice beloved community and live by and lean towards its intention. But the beloved community is something way bigger than what we seek to be within and among. Again, to quote Reverend Victoria Safford, beloved community is the widest circle of inclusive love you can imagine. embracing all persons, ancestors, descendants, and all of us. And thus it cannot be homogeneous in any way. And no single voice or party or position or denomination can own it. It intends a welcome so wide and deep that everyone within its sphere has equivalent standing, and their power derives from the shared risk of their diversity. For this reason, she writes, the beloved community is not devoid of conflict, but brave in the hard work of listening and forgiveness, the hard work of working it out with no souls overboard. Anger flares sometimes, and righteous outrage, and the community is strengthened thereby if everyone stays at the table, learning and growing all together. The goal, she says, is reconciliation, not to destroy your opponent nor cast them out, but to stay in the struggle till love wins, which means all our lives. This is no easy thing, she continues, as we all know from living in close quarters all the time with our families, our co-workers, our neighbors, our annoying Facebook friends, and in this political moment where dehumanizing others is so tempting, even feels urgent and necessary. And she concludes, beloved community means that every day, every action, every interaction has to have that goal in mind. This is what makes it so beautiful and holy and hard. There you have it. What beloved community means and what it means to practice beloved community. Now, as Unitarian Universalists, we have desired to be diverse and multicultural for decades. But the reality is that true diversity, equity, and inclusion is rare because most of our congregations operate out of cultural norms that are primarily white, Euro-American, and Protestant. We have been slowly developing a deeper awareness of systemic racism, not only in its overt white supremacist forms, but in its more insidious forms of institutional racism, racial inequity, racist abuse, and the like. We know more than we have ever known about the deep spiritual work that it takes to combat systemic racism and other kinds of oppression in all their forms and to embody a more multicultural way of being. But it is a painful reality that many of our congregations do not have a sufficient level of proficiency to function successfully in a multiracial, multicultural context. Now, this is not anyone's fault. It has to do with our demographic makeup and the extent to which our congregations have effectively engaged in anti-racism and intercultural literacy work that could increase this level of proficiency. But while it may not be anyone's fault, it is everyone's responsibility to live into our multicultural, pluralistic theology. And that's what the work of the beloved community is about. And it can be done. We can practice the beloved community of now while learning to embody the beloved community of not yet. So how do we go about it? First comes intentionality. You see, diversity, equity, and inclusion happen not by accident, but by decision. conscious awareness, and explicit effort. It is about shifting our consciousness and our culture, not just shifting our numbers. Now, there is a conversation that is just beginning in our movement that can help us in this regard. It is in the form of a new principle, an eighth principle that many of you may have heard, that we could add at Cedar Lane and that the UUA could add to help us all develop and claim an anti-racist, multicultural, pluralistic identity. Now, the proposed eighth principle, developed by All Souls member and lay leader Paula Cole-Jones, currently reads, "We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions." The consideration of this proposed principle is fundamentally a conversation about the heart of our faith and how we are called to be in the world. It asks some fundamental questions. Is beloved community our commitment? If it is, what does that mean for our beliefs and our actions? What may we need to let go of? What may need to be different? What do we need to cultivate? These are important questions for our faith community nationally and here at Cedar Lane. Second is inclusive worship, religious education, cultural experiences embodying a variety of styles and traditions, and social justice work. As Taquina Boston, UUA's Director of Multicultural Growth and Witness, points out, congregations don't become welcoming and multicultural merely by hoping people with historically marginalized identities will visit our congregations and stay. We have to shift our practices and get out of our comfort zones. In other words, we need to bring a multicultural, pluralistic lens and orientation into our religious education programming for all ages, our music and worship experiences, professional and lay leadership, and pastoral care. We need to build and sustain accountable relationships with local organizations and communities that are engaged in racial justice work as allies and learning partners. We need to form partnerships with other congregations, Unitarian Universalist and non-Unitarian Universalist, that are doing anti-racism, multiculturalism, and racial justice work. Third, we need to build an existing anti-oppression work within our community. For example, Cedar Lane has a wonderful history of being engaged in LGBTQ and environmental justice issues. We can build on that by being engaged in conversations, in workshops, and panel discussions that discuss particular ways that homophobia, transphobia, and the climate crisis affect communities of color, and how issues of race, ethnicity, class, gender identity, sexual orientation, immigration status, and climate change might intersect. Fourth is adaptability. We have to be willing to examine our old ways of doing things and really see if they still serve us and the diverse religious community that we seek to be. To be open to new people, we have to be willing to be open to new ideas, new ways of being, and maintain a willingness to learn about a completely different perspective of the world. We need to develop an awareness of how one's own cultural frame of reference influences how we look at the world, how we live in the world, and what limitations this might hold for us. We need to be able to live with the discomfort of being exposed to completely different ways of looking at the world all the time. We need to be open to feedback, to adjust one's behavior, to learn from our mistakes, and to get a better understanding of a new cultural perspective that is very different from our own. That's a lot, but that's what this work entails. Which brings me to the last point: commitment, practice. We need to develop the commitment to stay on the journey, to be in solidarity, to keep learning, to keep listening, and to keep contributing where we can. Now, it can be really hard to stay committed for the long haul, but we need to find a way to keep returning to this work. Now, as your senior minister, I am committed to supporting you as you intensify the work of change and transformation. I am committed to equipping you with the information and the tools you will need to effect change. But what I don't possess is a magical one-size-fits-all solution to an incredibly complex reality. We all have much to learn about how and from what place of understanding we build diverse and accountable relationships outside the congregation, how we create meaningfully diverse and accountable relationships within the congregation, and how we support our youth and young adults of color and multiracial interfaith families that are a part of our community. But this work cannot be done by me or Katie or by a small group of people on your behalf. It is something we need to commit ourselves to being and doing together. We need to keep our focus on the truth that the work of practicing the beloved community is still to be done, even if it is embedded and celebrated in our vision, where we say we dare to embody beloved community, that it is more an aspirational statement than a living reality. And that the challenge, the spiritual challenge that we have, is to live into that reality. And that all of us have a voice in shaping this community into one which we can, with our minds, our hearts, and our hands, authentically call beloved one day. And so I close with these words from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "The end is reconciliation. The end is redemption. The end is the creation of the beloved community. It is this type of spirit and this type of love that can transform opponents into friends. It is this type of understanding goodwill that will transform the deep gloom of the old age into the exuberant gladness of the new age. It is this love which will bring about miracles in the hearts of all people." And to that vision and to that reality, I say amen and invite you to say amen. And to that vision, I invite us to sing, "Come and go with me to that land."
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land where I'm bound.
Our benediction today is adapted from the words of my dear colleague and friend, the late Reverend Dr. Hope Johnson. We are one, a diverse group of proudly kindred spirits, here not by coincidence, but because we choose to journey together. Learning to love our neighbors, learning to love ourselves, apologizing and forgiving with humility, repairing and reconciling with compassion, being forgiven through grace, renewing and recommitting with courageous love, and practicing and creating the beloved community together. We are one. Go in peace, go making peace, live gently, love mightily, and bow to the mystery. So may it be.
Thank you, Reverend R.B. Janamanchi, Reverend Katie Romano Griffin, Dana Edwards, and our worship associate Jared Wilson. Thank you to our co-music coordinators Dr. Jasmine Lee and Jenny Lynn Moyer. The Cedar Lane Quartet, the Children's Choir, the combined Cedar Lane and Mount Vernon choirs, and Jenny Crane for the beautiful music that enriched and enlivened today's service. Thank you to our audio-visual team, Barb Thompson, Michael McCrickard, Mike Morse, Todd Chernikoff, and Don Woodruff. Also thanks to Rebecca Knocktrebe for the beautiful in-gathering slides. Friends, fans, and members of Cedar Lane, please join us with your favorite beverage for a virtual coffee hour after the service. The URL for virtual coffee hour will be in the YouTube chat. And join us next Sunday at 11 a.m. with Dana Edwards and Reverend Katie Romano Griffin.
A young man came to a house of prayer. They did not ask what brought him there. He was not friend, he was not kin, but they opened the doors and they let him in. And for an hour the stranger stayed. He sat with them and he seemed to pray. But then the young man drew a gun and he killed 9 people, old and young. In Charleston, in the month of June, the mourners gathered in a room. The president came to speak some words, and the cameras rolled and the nation heard. But no words could say what must be said for all the living and the dead. So on that day and in that place, the president sang Amazing Grace. The president sang Amazing Grace. We argued where to lay the blame, on one man's hate or our nation's shame. Some sickness of the mind or soul, and how those wounds might be made whole. But no words could say what must be said for all the living and the dead. So on that day and in that place, the president sang Amazing Grace. My president sang